Hi, everyone. My name's Mackenzie, and I'm a current UCDC staff member and an alumni of the UCDC program. So today I'm going to be interviewing my former supervisor from the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, which is where I completed my UCDC internship in winter of 2019. So today our guest is Ryan McKenna, who is the Director of Media Relations at the Wilson Center as part of the External Relations team. So Ryan, to start us off, could you please tell us what a usual day in the life at Wilson looks like for you prior to COVID?
Well, first of all, hello. It's good to see you again, Mackenzie. And hello to everybody that's taking a look at this. In DC, as far as the Wilson Center goes, my typical day would start between 8:30 and 8:45, depending on how the trains are running. And we would do a morning meeting with the internship staff to go over what the headlines are of the day, maybe identify one or two stories that our scholars may be able to contribute analysis to. We'd also go over the live event schedule at the Wilson Center. Sometimes we have heads of state visiting, sometimes we have cabinet members visiting, not only from the US, but from other countries as well. So we would have a lot of live events happening on the premises that we would need to coordinate the media for. And then in the afternoon, we would coordinate media hits for that evening, as well as take a look at the next day, try and project out where the headlines are going and seeing if there are any different avenues we need to take. And then around, I think the day would be over probably between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, where we take a look at the news of the day, where we've contributed. Mackenzie, you know very well the Wilson in the News newsletter that we send out to all of the entire mailing list of the Wilson Center. That's about 250 staff members plus about 2,000 alumni, which is basically a daily clip report saying these are the stories that we were involved in. These are the op-ed pieces that were written by our experts, and these are the pieces that we were quoted in. These are the pieces that we were interviewed for, and then you start the whole thing over again.
I remember when I was there, we felt like we were running around about every hour, going from event to event or trying to track down scholars, get people in the studio to do a news clip, radio hit, whatever. So I'm really curious how Wilson's gone online and how your position has drastically changed, as well as the rest of the external relations team.
For me, personally, it's changed because I'm doing this a lot. This is the first time, ironically, this is the first time that I've had to worry about, how Rate My Room may look at my space and figure, I'm usually coordinating all of these interviews and sending Zoom links now to leadership, members of the C-suite, Congresswoman Harman, and our different scholars, just getting them up to speed. The hardest part, Mackenzie, I think, was the first 2 weeks, getting everybody. I mean, we have scholars we have millennial scholars, but we also have scholars who have been at the Wilson Center since its inception in 1968. It's a wide range of experts, and some of them know how to put apps on their phone, and some of them don't. It's a simple thing to say, but it's a hard thing to get somebody who's 80 years old but still has, a lot of analysis to give. It's hard to get them on the grid. And we spent the first 2 weeks of the quarantine, never mind all of the anxiety that was new for everybody, but we spent the first 2 weeks really educating our scholars on how to put apps on their phone, how to log in, really hand-holding stuff that we had to make sure that they were good. And then after that, it was testing those connections, because you can't schedule an interview with a television network and then, you know, just leave it to chance. We had to make sure that they were dialed in and they knew which buttons to press and how to log in and how to, you know, where the camera was. You know, it's another thing when the normal thing to do is to look somebody in the eye. So as you and I are talking now, if I want to look you in the eye, I have to go like this. But then I have to, you know, I had to give scholars that, no, you have to look, here's your camera, here's where it is. You know, luckily for them, luckily for us, you know, maybe 85 to 90% of the scholars have iPhones. So I can tell them, you know, but some of them have Android machines, some of them. So I had to go and look up, where's the camera located on this device? Where's the camera located on that device? So the first 2 weeks were critical, getting them up and running and educated and literate on the technical aspects of it. And then just making sure that as time progressed, as they did more and more Zoom meetings, as they did more interviews, that they became comfortable with the process. And that it, another thing was that convincing, you know, trying to convince them that, you know, giving out a Skype handle or giving out an email address, you know, really didn't, you know, it wasn't a breach of national security. You know, these people are acting in good faith. I trust them. They trust us. We're going through VPNs. You had to talk them off the ledge sometimes and just say, it's fine. I'm here. I'm your advocate here. If anything goes wrong, I'm here and you can ask me what you need to ask me. So getting them educated was the first two things. So the first 2 weeks were absolutely critical. So.
Yeah, it's kind of a segue into another portion that I want to get your insight on, which was the Wilson Center on their website has said that they are moving internships to remote and doing online
Yes.
for the summer and potentially longer, depending on how long the stay-at-home order lasts in DC.
Yeah.
And so it's good to hear that, at least for media relations, it's been pleasantly surprising in a lot of ways and has actually in some ways made the job tiny bit easier, and then obviously in other ways much, much harder. So I wanted to know, you know, from the information that you have currently, what do you know about internships at Wilson going remote? Are you going to be taking on an intern this summer? And how do you plan to kind of incorporate them into this remote work?
Yeah, a great question. We are going, external relations is going remote with our internships. That for media relations, I'm taking on, I get one intern every semester. I do have an intern signed and ready to start in June, starting the first week of June. She's from Singapore. She's there now, and I've been chatting with her like we're chatting here, just sort of getting her up to speed, using the time that we have home to sort of give her a virtual orientation. When you started, I know we give you this, I tell you to go on, excuse me, you know, I tell you to go on the Q drive and pull up the orientation guide and just sort of read through it. And I can still do that, but it's getting her, Amy is her name. So it's getting Amy up to speed on Cision, getting Amy up to speed on Wilson in the News. Here's what it looks like. Here's how you craft it. Why don't you take a crack at it? In many ways, my wife is a kindergarten teacher, and so I've been watching her do these with you know 30 screaming kids, and she loves the fact that you can just press one button and mute them all. But we digress. But giving my intern homework and just saying, here's your login decision. Go through, find the clips from today. Here's what I have to add. And then just take a crack at putting a Wilson in the News together. So like my job, and I think it's probably about 85 to 90% of the job that the intern can do remotely for me. The fact that there will be no live events at the Wilson Center, at least through July 4th, is, means that most of the work that we do with the interns can be done remotely. It's a matter of watching the news and creating the alerts and going through and asking the right questions. And, we'll still have events. So we'll still have media advisories. We'll still have press releases. There will still be quotes that we have to get from program directors. There will still be quotes that we have to get from guest speakers. There will still be people that we need to track down. We just have to do it virtually now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been easier to transition the internship to a virtual thing than transitioning, some of our scholars to doing media hits virtually.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that was one of the insights that I had, is that for college students, this is kind of the perfect time to jump in and help, because we've all had to acclimate to these online systems to do classes. So, we've been forced to become experts, unlike, some of the older staff members who have never had to do something like this before.
And I'll tell you what, hearing you say that, it's great. There's no bad idea right now. I would love it. And one of the things that I always appreciated about your time there, one of the things that I looked for when I was, when I look for interns now, is that, you weren't afraid to say, here's a new way of trying to do this, or maybe if I, did this like that, here's a new way of doing. And even more so now, now that we're doing all of this, because we are all learning this at the same time, interns right now, not only is it worth the time that you're going to be giving, but you will have an opportunity to get an idea out there, even more so now, because people are listening to the craziest ideas. We're all at home. Let's try doing this. We had our intern, the AV intern, suggested that, if we're doing all of these now interviews, and John Molesky is still doing a now interview, it looks almost the same, except the fact that he's at his house. But the intern was the one that selected, listen, we've got all this time at home now. Why don't we take the now interviews and sort of slice them up into little promos and send those out to sort of promote the interview and try and drum up some attention for it. It was a home run. We loved it. It was easy to do because we're all home now and we're not, we can devote the time to it. So if you're an intern, you will have these new opportunities, and don't be afraid to speak your mind, and don't be afraid to throw an idea out right now, because managers and executives, they're listening to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just kind of as a last wrap-up question related to that is, I understand like any apprehension someone would have about taking a remote internship, because, it seems like second fiddle when you compare it with going to Washington, D.C., walking into the Reagan Trade Center, the oohs and ahs of walking the streets of Washington. I totally get that. But at the same time, my favorite thing about being at Wilson was getting to connect with all these people and really feeling like I had a place in the organization, and that everything I did really went on to contribute to the impact that Wilson had, and making sure that other people knew how important Wilson was. So how are you going to ensure that your intern over the summer still gets that connective tissue of being an intern at Wilson?
You're absolutely right. It's nice being in DC. There's something about the city that, makes you feel inspired. But what I'm trying to push with my interns and the people that I speak to about being an being intern here, and saying that, I should say that even though we've advertised it that it's a virtual internship, we haven't had a lapse in applicants. it's been the same. I've had to sift through resumes and writing samples as much as I had, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or as much as when I started. I'm pushing the connection to Wilson Center experts. I'm pushing the fact that you're going to be dealing with people who have been in the room making important decisions and crafting policy. I'm making sure that, you're going to be dealing with, our president and CEO, Congresswoman Jane Harman, who was a ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, who has plenty to say on issues that are happening today, and we get to help her craft those messages. You'll still be dealing with Duncan Wood at the Mexico Institute, who deals with President Obrador in Mexico and has a personal relationship with people on both sides of the border. You're going to be dealing with border issues. There's never been a more important time or more substantive time to deal with border issues, both north and south. Chris Sands in the Canada Institute. This border issue with COVID, it's an organic thing. The borders are restricted right now. This has never happened for this long before. The important thing is, the sights and sounds of DC are great, but the people and the connections that you make, wherever they go, you're with them. And Congresswoman Harman always likes to say that the Wilson Center is like the Hotel California, where it's a cheesy line, but I give it to her.
It's true.
But she goes, you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. And we really feel that way. I talk with McKenzie. We talk constantly about opportunities and how people can help. And that goes for everybody that has ever worked for me at the Wilson Center. And I look forward to doing that. And I look forward to seeing what this new virtual internship is going to be. I know what I want it to be, but it's not just my decision. The intern is going to have some say in that. So I think that would be, that maybe that's another good point to make, is that, you have a unique opportunity to create something that is yours. People are doing this for the first time. I don't know what this internship is going to be like. I'm going to be looking for Amy to provide me with suggestions. It'll be, the exit interview is going to be super important with her. How did we do? What can we do better? All of the things. When you take classes, you give those faculty reviews at the end of a semester. I'm going to be very interested in seeing what she says at the end of this semester.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for all of your insights. I was super curious because I wasn't sure how Washington was running. I'm also adapting with the COVID situation, and I've been out of the loop for a couple weeks. As everything's been coming back together. So thank you so much for just answering questions and being able to give that glimpse into what this new little blip of time is like for everyone.
I really hope my son hasn't been crying too much. Like I said, it's just after 5 o'clock my time right now, and it's on a Friday, so it's the end of a long week for him. So he's, but I'm always happy to help, McKenzie. Like I said, you're part of the Wilson family. That never changes. So we always hope to see you when you visit. And please, any potential interns that are thinking about a career in media relations or just want to know what it is, it's not like there's a class out there that gives you 3 credits in media relations. It's definitely something that you find after you graduate. I'm always happy to be of service.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording, but again, thank you so much.
You're
for
welcome.
Your insight.
All right. Bye.
Bye.